Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving headfirst into the 2026 AI ecosystem war. Look, it's a landscape that has completely shifted from what we knew just a couple of years ago. We're going to break down the massive strategic contrast between tech giants, specifically Google and Apple. And then, we're going to pull back the curtain to reveal the hidden hardware kingmakers in Taiwan who are actually pulling the strings behind the scenes. Let's get right into it.
So think about this for a second. Google and Apple are fighting tooth and nail for your next device upgrade. But the real battle? It isn't about the phone in your hand anymore. It's about who is building the invisible architecture that actually dictates industry profits. The physical hardware running the complex AI systems of tomorrow isn't always coming from the brand stamped on the back of your phone.
So the crucial point here is that modern tech competition has completely migrated away from the device itself. As this quote from Juatech Africa hits the nail on the head, it's all about structural dependency now. The defining struggle is no longer about which phone wins a launch cycle with the best camera or the brightest screen. It's about ecosystems. Systems that grow so valuable and so deeply embedded in your daily habits that leaving them becomes practically impossible.
All right, Section 1, the 2026 ecosystem threshold, moving from devices to structural power.
We really shouldn't look at 2026 as just a finish line on a calendar. It's the exact threshold where artificial intelligence becomes the invisible fabric of our digital lives. We're officially moving past device specs. Analysts point to this exact period as the moment where contextual AI and services revenue finally overtake traditional hardware margins as the primary growth engine. The future of tech profitability isn't about selling you a piece of glass and metal anymore. It's about which ecosystem securely holds your context, your history, and your daily workflow. Basically, who holds your daily habits hostage in the most convenient way possible.
Let's move to Section 2, Apple's on-device dilemma, cognitive control and privacy.
Okay, let's dive into how the two biggest players are approaching this threshold, starting with Apple's strictly vertically integrated strategy. Apple's core strategy relies on something called cognitive control. Because they control the entire stack, the silicon, the hardware, the software, and the services, they optimize for absolute predictability. Files just appear where you expect them. Software updates are seamless. Workflows just resume. By reducing your mental load, Apple builds incredibly durable lock-in. Think about the dread you feel at the thought of moving all your photos, passwords, and authenticators to an entirely new system. That friction, that's cognitive control working exactly by design.
And they are applying this exact philosophy right to their AI rollout. Apple Intelligence relies heavily on strict privacy. They've rolled out an overhauled Siri, powered by an in-house large language model, and the default is always on-device execution. Features like visual intelligence perform deep, cross-app tasks locally without leaking your personal context to the cloud. They're betting big that users want intelligence they don't have to trust to a remote server.
But here's the catch. It's a real dilemma of constraints. While Apple's closed ecosystem offers phenomenal privacy and tight integration, analysts point out that it risks remaining somewhat thin. In diverse global markets, particularly emerging economies across Africa and Asia, where local services, mobile money, and informal economies completely dominate, Apple's rigid infrastructure can feel partial and less localized. So their greatest strength is also their inherent limitation when it comes to massive global scale.
Which brings us to Section 3, Google's cloud-to-edge advantage, planetary scale and speed.
Now, when we contrast the two impartially, Google is leaning into its historic advantage, planetary scale, backed by massive hardware-intensive infrastructure. You've got Apple's localized privacy and depth versus Google's sheer breadth. Google's strategy relies on a cloud-to-edge architecture powered by their Gemini and Astra models. Instead of concentrating power entirely on the device, Google distributes it across layers, from their massive server farms all the way down to everyday Android devices, creating a much broader, more interoperable ecosystem.
And this brilliantly illustrates the difference in approach. Look at how Gemini 3.5 Flash stacks up against GPT 5.5. Because Google runs on its own custom tensor processing units, or TPUs, they have a massive structural advantage in throughput and time to first token. They've built an AI engine designed from the ground up to be incredibly fast and cost-efficient. That is absolutely crucial for high-frequency, automated tasks across millions and millions of users.
Section 4, Agentic AI changes everything, from chatbots to action. This speed we just talked about is critical because we are leaving simple chatbots in the dust. Welcome to the era of agentic AI. This is a massive leap forward. We are moving from taps to thought. Instead of you opening an app and typing out a query, agentic AI systems understand your context, make autonomous decisions, and actually execute complex multi-step workflows across different applications on your behalf. Your phone isn't just answering questions, it's anticipating what you need to do and then just doing it.
Google's Project Astra is pretty much the ultimate expression of this. Imagine you're walking down the street wearing smart glasses. Astra pulls from your Gmail, checks your route, and reroutes you on the fly because it visually sees a street closure ahead of you. It's got visual memory, cross-app access, and personalized reasoning to help you navigate your day in real time. It literally lives in your environment.
Section 5. Taiwan's Supply Chain Kingmakers. The Physical Architecture of AI.
Now, what's really interesting here is that making this ambient AI a reality requires an unbelievable amount of physical compute power. Just look at that staggering figure, $2 billion. Yep, billion with a B. That is the single quarter revenue expected by Taiwanese chip designer MediaTek just from their custom ASIC project with a major US cloud provider, which is widely confirmed by industry insiders to be Google.
If we break down the exact hardware flow, the foundation of this entire tech war relies almost entirely on publicly listed Taiwanese tech giants. Here's how it works. Google designs the framework, but MediaTek, that's stock ticker 2454, is actively co-designing the 8th-generation TPUs for the data centers, as well as the edge chips for the devices. Then, TSMC, stock ticker 2330, steps in and physically manufactures this incredibly complex silicon using their cutting-edge 3nm and 2nm nodes.
Section 6. MediaTek and TSMC win, profiting from the paradigm shift. While Google and Apple are slugging it out over software ecosystems, the companies undeniably profiting from this massive paradigm shift are these Taiwanese powerhouses. Look at MediaTek's current arsenal. They aren't just making smartphone processors anymore. They're evolving into a comprehensive agentic AI platform company. They've got the Dimensity 9400 Plus dominating edge computing, they're co-designing data center TPUs, pushing automotive platforms, and absolutely dominating the Wi-Fi 7 connectivity that links all these AI nodes together.
To really grasp how powerful edge hardware has become, you just have to look at the Dimensity 9400 Plus. This chip features an 8th-generation neural processing unit that allows phones to run highly complex models like DeepSeek R1 entirely locally. By solving the massive thermal and power constraints of edge computing, this specific piece of silicon is what actually makes Apple and Google's dreams of fast, private, on-device agentic AI physically possible.
Let's move to NVIDIA and see how this builds out over the next few years. Following this infrastructure roadmap shows an incredibly aggressive timeline for total market dominance. From launching their hybrid AI strategy in 2024 to deploying the Dimensity 9400 Plus to the massive 8th-gen TPU deployment with Google this coming year, leading straight into next-gen mass production by 2027. They are systematically locking down the hardware layer of the entire AI revolution.
And standing right beside them, of course, is the ultimate market kingmaker, TSMC. As a publicly listed powerhouse, TSMC remains the single most indispensable foundry on the planet. Whether we're talking about Apple's highly localized, privacy-focused silicon, or Google and MediaTek's massive cloud-to-edge TPU infrastructure, well, none of it exists without TSMC's advanced 2nm and 3nm manufacturing prowess.
Which leaves us with this final, absolutely crucial question to ponder. As Apple and Google pour billions upon billions into their high-profile battle for ecosystem and AI software dominance, are the true, unshakable monopolies of our future digital economy actually being forged right now, quietly, in the silicon supply chains of Taiwan? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.